Welcome to the adjourned Safety in the Community meeting. I'm Councillor Holder, Cabinet Member for Safety in the Community. Bit of housekeeping. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble near Queen Victoria's statue in the Guildhall Square. Everyone using a microphone will be recorded and broadcast on the website, including those making deputations. Please remember to switch it off when you are finished so the camera can move to the next person. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. So firstly, some introductions.
Jane Dodino, Local Democracy Officer.
Richard Lee, Assistant Director of Culture, Leisure and Regulatory Services.
I don't know, I'm going to try Richard's then.
Lisa Wills. Just need to turn the other two off, I think.
Hey?
I think you have to turn the others off.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll try again then. My name's Lisa Wills. I'm from the executive of the council, and my title is Strategy and Partnership Manager.
My name is Yinka Deniron, or Charles Dickens Ward.
Emily Stradwick, Hilsey Ward.
Thank you, everyone. Apologies, there's no apologies. However, Councillor Hannah Brent is running slightly late, so she'll be joining us soon, hopefully. Declarations of interest. Does any member have anything to declare? No. Thank you. In that case, we'll get on with agenda item 3, which is Food Safety Operating Plan 2023-2024. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. The paper is the Food Safety Operating Plan. Obviously, the appendix itself, which is quite lengthy, 20 or so pages, is the bulk of the plan itself. And what I hope to do this afternoon, just flesh out a couple of the most important areas of the plan. The report provides 3 recommendations: to approve the food operating plan, to recognise the level of resources which are available to regulatory services to deliver the plan, and acknowledges the demand upon regulatory services in terms of food safety. It's very important to state that this is a statutory function of the local authority, and we are regulated and audited by the Food Standards Agency, and we need to comply with the regulations of central government, which effectively is summed up in the Food Law Code of Practice. There's a vast range of responsibilities that we have to carry out. Effectively, they're all based around the need to ensure that food and drink is stored, distributed, and is consumed in a safe manner. But I'll just skim through some of the areas. Of course, there's regulations. We have to inspect premises. We are here to provide help and support to food business operators. We're here to investigate complaints in relation to food businesses. Because we enforce regulations, we may have to take enforcement action in regard to poor performance. We sample products, and we're involved with the composition of products to ensure they meet regulations around allergies, for example, allergens, for example. We're here to try and prevent outbreaks of food poisoning. And we do have a port house service which focuses upon biosecurity measures, importation checks which are required by the government. I'm not going to focus on Port House because I have taken a number of papers individually in relation to our Port House responsibilities. As you will have recognised, we're going through that list. Everything that we do has a real public health significance in terms of food safety. And the narratives within the food operating plan set out some of the detail of our responsibilities in terms of numbers. We have around about 2,100 registered food businesses within the city. And there is a high demand, obviously, in terms of our resources, in terms of maintaining what is known as the Food Hygiene Rating Scheme, and most people will be familiar with the scores on the doors, as I call it, the 0 to 5 and the rating of food businesses. And we urge the public, of course, to consider the rating scheme and the score which is applicable to each food business. All of the scores which we enforce are uploaded to the FSA website. So if you wish to understand more about the score of a particular premises you may be visiting or intending to visit, then you can go to the Food Standards site under Food Hygiene Rating Scheme. You can put in the address of the food premises you wish to visit and the score will pop up. Hopefully. We upload these data on a regular basis. It's not exactly live because inside the time of live time, because we upload the data approximately every fortnight or so. It's really important that when you consider our regime in terms of the Food Hygiene Rating Scheme, that there is a risk-based approach. So where businesses are unlikely to cause significant problems, such as they buy in products which are prepackaged, so a confectionery store, something like that, they are known to be low risk because of the products that they are selling. When you compare that perhaps with fresh fish and sushi, they are known to be a high risk. And our rating scheme in terms of risk rates from A to E. That scheme, dictated by the Food Standards Agency, dictates how quickly and how often we need to go into premises to ensure that their processes meet the relevant standards. I won't go through them all, but if it's an A-rated premises, we're likely to go through the door of that premises on a 6-monthly basis. If it's an E-rated premises, it might be every 3 years. So you can see the scope and the importance of the risk rating. Table 3 within the Food Operating Plan sets out the rating profile for Portsmouth food businesses. Again, 0 to 5, I won't go through them all. 0 rated premises, there were 7 at the time of writing the report, which is about 0.4% of food businesses within the city. And I'm very pleased to say that 5 rated premises accounts for 1,371 premises in the city, and that equates to 73.9%. So it's a wonderful food offer that we have. Of course, where we find food premises not doing everything they need to do, then they will be liable to the score which is pertinent to our inspection. When we go through the doors, we have a raft of enforcement possibilities. They could be advisory, educationally. They could be in terms of we provide narrative in writing with regards to any improvement they may need to create. But on occasions, we may need to implement enforcement action. And again, we've got a ramped approach to enforcement, as we have with every regulatory regime that we deliver. And we can serve notices requiring the business to improve during a period of time, which is specified within that document. Or indeed, should we believe there is an imminent risk to public health, then we have powers to close the premises at the time of our inspection. What we would do as a local authority is we would engage with that business, should a closure be required, offering them advice about the actions they need to undertake, and offer them in the first instance what is called a voluntary closure. That negates the need to go through a court system and to ratify any formal notice that is required to close a business. So a voluntary situation is beneficial to the business, beneficial to the regulatory function, as we don't have to spend more time through a court system, and obviously we can use that time to engage with businesses. At the time of writing, during I think an 8-month period, we had issued 39 voluntary closures to businesses within the city. Now, if you relate that back to the number of premises which is of a 0 rating, which was only 7, the reason being is that once a premises has been issued with a VC, they would fall at the lower end of that rating scheme, probably a 0, maybe a 1, but that premises can ask to be rescored as a result of the work they do to improve, and we can then go back into that premises and we will reissue that score depending on what we find in that situation. There is a cost involved. It's £215, I think, but that is a service that we offer to ensure that businesses don't hold on to that original score of when we first went through the door of a 0 or 1. They can improve that through that rescore scenario. I won't go into food sampling, but it is really important that we do focus upon what's in the food, what it consists of. An obvious example might be in regards to labelling. If you're buying a product, you need to know what's in that product, and we enforce the rules and regulations around that labelling process. Similar in terms of allergens and those sorts of things. And sometimes we sample projects just to ensure that they are what they report to be. So if there was a product that reported to be a beef product, we might do some DNA sampling to ensure it is all beef. Food, I mentioned the public health significance, and there is reference within the report of foodborne illness, and there were 89 counts of foodborne illness, which had been reported through a prescriptive mechanism. If people are feeling unwell, they may go to the doctor. The doctor may then do some tests to see why they're ill. If that relates back to a foodborne illness, that is reported to regulatory services. In terms of financial availability, we have 3.7 officers to deliver this regime, but those officers are multifunctional. They are charged with dealing other enforcement regimes as well, such as health and safety and animal welfare. And if I was to break that down, of the 3.7, I would suggest 1.2 are focused, FTE are focused on other responsibilities, and that means we have about 2.5 FTE to focus on our food safety requirements. In total, it equates to around about £220,000, and you will see I've made reference within the report that this is likely to be the minimum level of resource that is required to deliver our food safety responsibilities, and we are engaging with the Food Standards Agency regularly with regards to what they require of us and indeed the resources that we have available to us. Currently, we're in a good situation because we have port health officers which have been recruited to deliver the biosecurity check regime, which comes live on the 30th of April this year. And we've been utilising those qualified officers to help with the food intervention regime. We've got an eye on that delivery date, and obviously once that goes live, we won't have that additional resource available to us. But I reiterate, I believe we have the minimum level of resource which is required to deliver this statutory function. There is reference within the document of an internal audit, and recommendations were made to increase our resource. We have increased our resource. It was lower than I've just stated to you, we've had the pleasure of receiving an injection of resources. We have recruited an experienced qualified EHO. That officer is with us, and that will be an enormous benefit moving forward with regards to this regime. In terms of pressure points, there are always going to be pressure points. I refer back to our risk-based approach, which is accepted by the Food Standards Agency, and we will continue to focus on businesses which are of high risk or are of a low score. So if we had businesses which are of A in the high-risk category and are a low score, not 1s or 2s, then obviously that will always be our focus moving forward. We do have other responsibilities which are of interest to us in terms of sampling, water sampling, shellfish sampling. We do have a number of approved premises within the city, which are premises which create food for people. It's not, you know, they manufacture food, and obviously they will generally fall into a higher risk, just in case that process falls apart in some way, shape or form. I always give the example, I think I've given this example for the last 10 food operating plans. A meat pie manufacturer who might make 20,000 meat pies every day. If that process goes wrong, obviously the risk increases, and therefore they will always be approved premises will always be a high priority for us. It's not to suggest that approved premises are any increased risk. It just means that we have to keep a close eye on them in accordance with the necessary schedules. One final point, we have 2,100 food business operators in the city. That number is fairly static each year, but there is a churn of businesses. So it's not the same 2,100 premises each year. Premises might close for whatever reason, and we get a new FBO involved. They register with the local authority, and it's important that we try, and again, on a risk-based approach, deal with those premises whilst they are officially waiting inspection so that we can go in and install them in accordance with the food standard rating scheme. The only other thing I want to reiterate is that our ramped approach to risk is also a ramped approach to enforcement. Officers will not go into premises and close them unless there is an imminent risk to public health. And as I say, we're here to try and assist food business operators, engage with them, educate them, and we sincerely hope that they have the highest score possible. If they have a high score, that can then mean that we haven't got to pay them so much attention, and of course it's very good for their consumers and their customers who, of course, look at the food hygiene rating scheme on the FSA website, and they may choose to go to a 5-rated premises rather than a 0-rated premises. Very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Does anyone have any questions?
Richard, I know I asked on the briefing. Do you know how long the longest person's been waiting?
Yeah, based on the risk-based assessment, in terms of priority cases, so those which are the highest possible risk, we have 7 which have registered within 2023, which are still awaiting inspection.
And then, just because your reports are great, but just in case just wanted to highlight how quickly you guys actually come out from a complaint.
Again, it's risk-based, so we may have premises that are selling a product which is beyond its best before date. So a product of that nature probably has a long shelf life, and if that date has expired by a week or two, in fact, it doesn't mean it's unsafe to eat. It's just beyond its date of preferred usage. So we would treat that as a low priority. If we had an individual who had been to the doctor who had been proven that it is a food-related illness, then quite clearly that premises would be a high priority. Other high priorities may be where there's reports of breakdowns in equipment, so for example, no hot water, or indeed an infestation of rodents. And again, the sort of concerns with regards to problems with rodents, I think I went into some detail at the briefing, but I won't say that here. But if there is an infestation, that obviously becomes a high priority for us.
And then just a final comment. I wish you guys had more staff, because I actually truly appreciate everything that you guys do. And I know, obviously, when you go in to do food inspections, they're not the quickest. I think some people think they're 20 minutes, but they take a lot longer. So I just wanted to highlight that I know that you've still got people waiting, but getting through that on such a limited team is brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yinka, did you have anything?
Thank you, Richard, and that's a very good one. But the only question from me is, when you do your check, do you go unannounced, or you give them time to prepare? Because obviously, when they know you are coming, definitely a lot of things will change. So do you go there unannounced, or you just?
Yeah, a very good question. Thank you. All of our visits are unannounced. Of course, a business might know because of their risk rating. If they're high risk, and they might expect to see us every 6 months, so they'll have a rough idea when we're coming through the door. But they are always unannounced. The only time they are announced is if we have stipulated a time frame for improvement work to be carried out. So if there was a number of activities that they had to improve on, we might give them 28 days to complete that. So quite clearly, we would ensure that they knew that we were attending at the end of that period, so that they work towards the solution that we've asked them to create.
Thank you. And then one more thing. Do you have, like, maybe member of the public reporting to you, maybe if there's any problem with food poisoning or something, or you get this report from the hospital, or you have member of the public consulting you?
Absolutely. Members of the public can register a complaint with regards to a food business. Again, in the briefing, I think I used the example of there's a fly in my soup. It all depends upon how quickly we'll respond again. Something like that, if that was an example, then we probably wouldn't rush out because there is no imminent risk. But if a member of the public either reported a risk in terms of allergens and the necessary procedures in relation to a business, we consider that important because quite clearly if they're not complying with the allergen rules and regulations, that could be an imminent risk to an individual who is buying food from a particular restaurant, for example. Every case is different, but again, I reiterated the risk element, and we have a good assessment in terms of the risk and how quickly we will respond to complaints when they're received.
Thank you. One last thing. I don't know if this one will really, I'm not sure if it is a right question here, but apart from food poisoning or something, or food hygiene, do you deal with like antisocial behavior, maybe stabbing in the food premises? Do you deal with all that, or it's not part of your...
It falls within regulatory services. We amalgamated with our licensing partners, and where a business is licensed for alcohol, etc., then things of that nature would be reported through that regime. And the licensing team are very close working relationship with the police licensing officers. So if there were reports of antisocial behaviour, then it would be the licensing regime rather than the food safety officers who would get involved with that particular concern.
Thank you. Councillor Brent, welcome.
I literally rushed here as quickly as I could, so thank you for delaying it and apologies for lateness.
No problem. Have you got any interest to declare? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Richard. It's a really important piece of work. It's sort of really important to keep residents safe and know that they're being kept safe. It's good news that we managed to recruit another officer, and I know it's a huge task to inspect that number of food businesses, and just wanted to say thank you to everyone involved. I know it's a really important job. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we move on to item 4, restorative plan for Hot Walls and Camber Dock.
Great, thank you very much. So my report is probably just as long as Richard's, but actually the recommendations I'm hoping are very sort of short and straightforward. The report's long because there's lots of work that's been undertaken over the last 18 months. And the previous report in October last year sets out a wide range of work that was undertaken during the spring and summer this last year to develop this restorative plan for the Old Portsmouth area, which includes the establishment of a restorative support group, the coordination of youth outreach work, which was funded by the Police and Crime Commissioner, not the City Council, and a range of diversionary activities. Portsmouth Mediation Service were commissioned to sort of coordinate the whole lot of the work down there. Unfortunately, assessing the impact of this work has been really difficult because of the really poor weather during the summer. This meant that there were fewer large gatherings of young people, fewer opportunities to engage, and despite all the best efforts of people involved, the police were still required to manage disorder in the area and at South Parade Pier. So the findings from a small local survey also made it clear that young people were not interested in being diverted away from the area, and that residents did find their behaviour, or the behaviour of large groups, problematic. So we need to be aware of that. There were some suggestions from residents for alternative provision of things like floating diving platforms, and those things have been explored in the past by colleagues several years ago, but they were found to be inappropriate for coastal waters. They were high risk in terms of management and expensive to run in the long term. And more recently, the idea of a sea pool, I think, was raised, but the coastal works were too far advanced really to incorporate any sort of structures like this. So it's been communicated really clearly to the restorative support group that the council do not have the financial capacity to consider this sort of alternative provision or to increase the funding for youth services in the area. So the recommendations for this year are based on the experiences of previous years and the data we've gathered from the police and other agencies during the summer. And whilst it is the responsibility of all community safety partners to help manage the extra demand for services that arises during the summer, Portsmouth Mediation Service are still committed to continue to work with the community in the area this year and to focus on building positive relationships with the young people who visit the area. And of course, Operation Nautical, which is the multi-agency operation that is we run every year, will run across the seafront and will be responsive to other ASB hotspots, not just on the Canberra dock. The action plan sets out low-cost, no-cost activities for this year with a focus on preventative work in schools and continued close coordination between the police and council services. And we've just applied now to the Police and Crime Commissioner for funding to increase the number of youth outreach workers in the area, but we're not focusing on diversionary activities this year because they clearly didn't work last year. As I say, that's really all I want to say. The details in the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions?
Lisa, when you say you're going into schools, I'm behind you. How will you be talking to the kids? Do you have a plan like that?
We don't have a detailed plan just yet because we need to talk with head teachers. We were planning to talk to them on the 21st of March, in fact, tomorrow, but that meeting has been postponed. So the next meeting, I think, is in May, and Mark Collings, who's a seafront manager who works closely with the RNLI, who don't charge for their services in the schools, by the way, will be talking to the head teachers or trying to work with the head teachers and probably Councillor Horton on how best to approach it.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Brennan.
Will this be for colleges as well? Just thinking City of Portsmouth College, they're still fairly young, have quite a bit of time off.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's something that I think lots of people are aware of. I don't know how much the colleges will engage with it. And I have experience of working with them on domestic abuse, and now they're sort of quite responsive, but not wholly responsive. But we can take that on board, and I can add that if you'd like.
I'm just saying because, actually I don't know if I did declare, but I do work at the college as well, and they do have in their tutorial sessions a lot of things around safety. So this could be incorporated into one of those sort of weekly tutorials.
Fantastic. I'll follow that up with you.
Thank you. Councillor Adeniran.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lisa. So I think it's a really sensible plan. This has been going on for years and years. I remember my dad used to work down there in the late 60s, and he remembers kids jumping off the hot walls and into the Gamba. I know I get quite a bit of casework because it's my ward. So we're happy to continue engaging. We'll always support the residents, and it's good that the residents, the youth and the police are all involved. This isn't something just the council can solve on its own. So really good piece of work, and I know it's taken a long time. A lot of hard work's gone into it. Thank you. And I'd just like to say thank you for all your hard work, because I know you're retiring soon. You've been a real help to me, especially I've taken over this role. And I'd just like to wish you a very happy retirement, well-earned retirement.
Ooh. I still can't work these blooming machines after 25 years. Thank you very much, Councillor Holder. It's been a pleasure.
And I think that brings the meeting to the end. Thank you, everyone.